First and foremost, I think, why are we having this summit? What are we, taking you away from your businesses? This is a really busy time, as we know, particularly in South Florida, as we're getting boats ready with our fabulous supply chain here in South Florida for boats to go many places in the world, to Europe, to the Northeast, through the Panama Canal. This is our busiest time of year. It's also a busy time of year because we have the Palm Beach show starting on Thursday. And yet you've taken your time to come out to participate in this conference because you want to get something out of it. You're a business leader, you're a leader of your company, you're a leader in the industry, and you want to enhance that knowledge and understanding of the industry, tack on some personal and professional skills that you can use back in your businesses, and that's what we really want to do for you. So the reason we're here, quite honestly, are for those purposes. And as you can see there, and I let you read that mission for just a minute, leaving this event last year, our board went into a strategic planning process in the summer. The only changes we made to the mission were the ones that are highlighted there. Members worldwide and education. We wanted to make sure, because this is a member-driven, it's a volunteer organization, we wanted to make sure that our members were not only part of that mission statement, specifically expressed as it is there, but also educating our members, and education in the form of professional development, which is what this is about. So think about U.S. Superyacht Association doing advocacy work that we do, marketing work to promote the U.S. Superyacht industry, but also new part of the mission is to educate our members so that they can be better business people, so that they can do better in their respective businesses, and all of us will grow as an association if our members have more professional development. So that's kind of the why of we're here. What can you expect to get over the course of the next few days? Those are 3 boxes. I think they broadly, I'll assume literacy. I'll let you read those and digest those. But really, you'll hear information about the industry in just a few minutes, some terrific information that's being brought to us by one of our sponsors. You'll have an opportunity to listen to your peers, to hear from them in breakout sessions, and hear from the up here on the couches. And you'll really be able to then internalize some of those things and hopefully take them back and apply them in your business. You'll network with others, and you'll also have an opportunity, I hope, to, as our theme says, to refuel yourselves. We all need to be refueled. We all need nourishment in one way or another. Hopefully this will be a mental nourishment as well as some libations this evening, but we'll wait on those. This afternoon we want you to refuel yourself, re-energize yourself, and really revitalize yourself for your own sake, for your own personal sake, as well as your business. So that's what we hope you take away from this. So tomorrow night, out there in the poolside courtyard, you'll be expressing to others, yeah, I did get some nuggets of information and new news, new things that I can apply in my business. How we're going to do this, you can see, get speakers and panels, interactive tracks that you'll be on, and certainly social events. What would the marine industry be, and particularly the superyacht part of the marine industry, without our social events? And we're very appreciative of Rybovich Company hosting us this evening. So that's why we're here. That's what you should expect to get out of it, and that's how we're going to conduct the next 36 hours. Let me pause there for just a moment because I think at this point in time, it's important that we acknowledge our sponsors. And sponsors just, are an integral part of these events. Our Admiral sponsors this year is a new sponsor coming all the way from the UK, the Superyacht Report Group, and Martin Redmayne is here. You'll hear from Martin in just a few minutes. Thank you, Martin. Our lunch sponsor, and I'm really happy to have Ken Hickling here also from the UK because Ken is a past president of ISS. We've been working together, and you'll hear Ken talk about some of the fruits of our inter-association alliance labors tomorrow, some pearls of wisdom that you need to be a spokesperson, as we all are, an ambassador for the Superyacht segment of this market. And Ken is, as you know, with All Grip. Our cocktail party sponsor, Favli Insurance, they're a new sponsor. Is Sean Kuharski here? I don't know Sean, but hopefully he's here. If not, thank you very much. Our brake sponsors are Alex Seal, and I know Tripp is here. He's also a board member. Canvas Designers is a new sponsor. I saw Andy Flack, so I know Andy is here. Ocean LED. Bill Banning, is Bill here? He's a new sponsor. There's Bill right over there. Raven Offshore, our USSA Vice Chair and Summit Co-Chair, Rick Gladich. I know Rick is here. I was beating him up yesterday about things I need him to do as the Vice Chair, and also at dinner last night. Our revitalization sponsors, United Yacht Transport is a new sponsor. Paul Haber, is Paul here? Not yet. Mega Yacht News, Diane Byrne is our Summit Co-Chair as well. MHG, I didn't see Mark Benani. Is Mark here, or Clayton? I'm sure they're here. They'll be here. Palladium Technologies, I know Karen is here. Tradesman International, Mark Gaboy, I saw, and I know he's here. Let me just say this about sponsors. I don't want us to take the sponsors for granted. I think it's really important. We're going to give each of the sponsors a little bit of time up here at the mic, or at some point during the course of the next several hours, to tell you about their products and services. It's important that you know that, because it's those companies that really, all of those companies and the rest of our members that really supply this fabulous supply chain that we have for this industry. So it's important that you know what they do, what their products are, so that you might use them from a business-to-business standpoint. I do a lot of business with USSA members, and I also refer USSA members. And that's one of the benefits of membership. That's what you get for your money. If you want to know what you got for your money, that's one of the things you're getting for your money. So please, listen to what the sponsors have to say, understand what they do, so that you can either do business with them or you can refer them. In kind of wrapping up my opening remarks, I did want to acknowledge also the board of directors that are here with us today, the USSA board of directors. We have a big board. You're very well represented, the 300 plus members. Tim Davey, I think Tim is here from ISS GMT. Tim is our past chair. I mentioned Rick Gladich, who's our vice chair. Our co-advocacy chairs, I know Christy's here, and I know Peter. They're sitting together. You'll hear from them a bit later. They've got a fabulous presentation, and Peter's a very funny guy. If you don't know Peter, get to know Peter during the course of the next couple of days. Our marketing chair, Bert Fowles. I know Bert is here. Karen, I mentioned. Karen is our membership chair. Our new treasurer is George Del Pino. He's also with ISS GMT. Our governance chair and our co-chair with Diane and with Rick, our tri-chairs really, Jim Perry of Perry and Neblett. I know Jim is here as well. Our regional board members that are here right now, as you can, I know they're out there. John Clayman is here. I know Kate Pearson is here from San Diego. Billy Smith is here from the Gulf Coast. And I know Jay Dayton is here. And Jay, by the way, kudos to Jay in the Mid-Atlantic region. They have on the governor's desk in Maryland right now a law that's going to get signed into law. When, in a couple weeks, Jay? 15th of April. Oh, that's a kind of an interesting day, 15th of April, tax day. Anyway, we'll get signed into law a new pilotage agreement. The Maryland Trades Association got the pilots in Maryland to agree to change the pilotage law there in the Chesapeake waters off the coast of Maryland to 12 feet now, which is a big deal. So we can get some of our bigger boats in there. That follows last year on the heels of getting a tax cap, and it's what, 18%, Jay? $15,000. $15,000 tax cap registering boats in the state of Maryland. So a couple of big accomplishments by that state group up there. We hopefully will then be able to send boats from here this spring on their way to New England and elsewhere in the Northeast, up through the Chesapeake, as they've now got a different pilotage law. They're also working there on that law with the pilots in Virginia, Delaware, to try and get a similar law, so we have a standardized law and it be consistent. Our at-large board members, I think Eli Dana's here. I see Eli. I thought I saw Eli. Trip Nelson, who I mentioned from Alexiel, Christina Norris from Overseas Yachts. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't start out, because you want to be talking to them if you have any needs. Kitty McGowan and her U.S. Superyacht Association management team. Kitty and her team have done really yeoman's work in getting things ready, coordinated. We are always a kind of a last-minute Larry industry. Things come together in the last couple of weeks. It drives me crazy, but I had to get used to that in this industry some 15 years ago when I came into it. I finally, after 15 years, and I guess age has made me accept the fact that we're not going to change that, but that's okay, because everything does get done at the end of the day, and we have happy surprises. We have speakers who weren't going to be speaking as of last week that are real enhancements to our program.
Okay, so on we go. So I've kind of given the short introduction to Martin, but he's going to give you a little bit more about his background, and there are several slides that are going to be kind of the workhorse of data about what we're looking at in where we stand in the industry right now, where we stand in the United States as an industry, and we'll make some interesting observations and have you guys and the rest of the people comment. So with that, Martin, please go right ahead and share with us your...
First of all, thank you for letting me come here. All the way from London last night. I'd like to thank, I don't know, this bright light. Is Britta in the audience? Yes. I had a German member of USSA tell a British guy to get involved in an American event. All right, that's how global we are. So what I would like to just throw as an introduction here is that I've watched this industry grow in the last 25 years. From my first episode in Miami Boat Show back in '92 or whatever it was, to what it is today. And I think what that's done to my business is obviously it's grown exponentially alongside it. The interesting thing today is that everyone needs information. We are no longer a magazine business. We have evolved to provide services based on information. I think that's where it's a good sign of where the market's heading, that we are growing up, we're maturing. The way that people used to market themselves is changing. The way that people are sort of communicating with their clients still needs to change. I think that's what the exciting thing is about the future. I have something called the 2020 vision, that by 2020 we'll all be grown up and start doing intelligent marketing and new marketing and communicating to our customers and our non-customers in a very different way. There's a lot of what I call reactionary marketing. I hope that what we're doing at the Superyacht Group and other things we're planning to do for you guys will hopefully change the way we do business. It's an interesting industry. It's going to get smarter, more efficient, and more professional. That I can promise you. All right.
With that, why don't we go into the
Can I come up here, Michael?
heavy lifting, please.
Right. Let's move that out of the way. I don't need that. Right. Okay, I'm going to just quickly do a little bit of a chat now about the marketplace. Can everyone see the slides comfortably? I'll just sort of explain what this is. This is really a 95 to 2015 spectrum of our market's growth. The red line at the top is all the US growth. The rest of the market is below. If you look at back in the beginning of time, I call beginning of time is 95, when we really started to become a mature, emerging marketplace. We were a tiny industry still then. We still are pretty tiny, but that was the time when we had literally less than 2,000 yachts in 95. The US market has doubled. Actually, the US fleet has doubled in that same period, 20 years. The rest of the world market has trebled. What I want to just point out, though, is if I say back in 95, the largest yacht built in 95 was 78 meters, with a gross tonnage of 2,000. All right. 2015, 180 meters, 18,000 gross tons. That is the better indication where our market is growing. Asset value, tonnage growth, and length. But more importantly, asset value. You're talking about yachts in this lower tier in Europe being $100 million and above, well above $100 million. So the market has absolutely grown up and changed into become a really serious marketplace. But don't let that fool you. Because what is important is we don't just chase that upper tier of the marketplace. So I'm going to talk about the next slide, please, Michael. So what I'm just saying now is that I'm just going to put some serious numbers in front of you, which is the deliveries last year and 5 years ago. All right? You can see in 2010, Europe was quite a significant marketplace. It shrunk, all right? Deliveries year on year. Rest of the world, pretty stable, only lost about 4 or 5 units. US has literally lost about 40% of its market share in the last 5 years. This is deliveries. The reason why we say deliveries is proof of an asset being handed over to a client. A lot of information fudges the numbers that says there's these yachts in build, but these boats in build sometimes don't get delivered. They're work in progress, hangover projects, or just dormant assets. So it's important to look at numbers accurately rather than just look at numbers, what some publishers, what some information channels say, this is what's in the order book. The order book needs some management. I also have got a new system whereby we break the market into 3 segments because the three markets are very different. 30 to 45, 45 plus motor yacht, that's 2 separate markets in our opinion. And then sailing yachts treated completely differently. Sailing yachts are an enigma. You cannot work with sailing boats in the same way you can with motor yachts. They're different animals, different people, different owner structures, different usage. The motor yacht market, 45 meters plus, that is where we're seeing some exciting new projects. If you start analyzing yachts above a certain size and look at tonnage exclusively, you see incredible growth curves. I'm not giving you all the information. All the information is in this wonderful book here. Available on Amazon. No. But anyway, the point is, Michael, next slide, please.
Are they for sale outside?
Not here, not here. But I'll tell you about it in a second. I'm not going to do any sales pitch. But this is the important slide from the order book perspective. This is the current order book movement in the last 5 years. 2011, the bottom curve. You can see in 2011 there were 61 projects on order in the USA, compared to 337 in Europe, 48 in the rest of the world. Rest of the world being anything outside Europe, anything outside the USA. Does that make sense? That's Australia, New Zealand, Asia, etc. Rest of the world has remained pretty stable for the simple fact there's a finite number of build slots in those overseas set territories. Europe is almost back to where it was, three orders short of a 5-year cycle. But you'll see the doom and gloom story. I'm not allowed to be too negative on this presentation. America's halved its order book in 5 years. All right. That, I think, is a fairly important thing to consider, why that's happened, what mistakes have been made, and I'm hoping we might be able to discuss that in the next sort of couple of moments. Next slide, please, Michael. Now a bit of a positive spin. Now listen, we've just done a straight line growth curve. This is 2014 to 2020. We will break 6,000 units in the fleet by 2020. That we can almost predict today comfortably. The number of assets in build, in plan, in discussion directs us to say 6,000 will be cracked above 100 feet by 2020. Now that means all you guys in the service, after sales, supply chain, refit and repair area, operational service companies, the fleet is getting much bigger in terms of asset value, tonnage, and potentially cruising patterns. So ultimately, we're looking at some quite interesting future projections. All right. One caveat. The current order book is almost exiting and being delivered by the end of 2018. So most of the yards across Europe, across the rest of the world, and across the USA need to refill that build slot to keep this momentum going. We will see some increase. This is a straight line growth, by the way, based on the current averages over the last 5 years. If we take the same curve based on what is due to deliver 2015, 2016, 2017, the first 4 bars will grow dramatically. But that will maybe mean 18, 19, 20, there's a tail off. But it will still get past 6,000 units. Michael, next slide, please. The reason why we're all optimistic, and we have to be optimistic, is this little curve, or this little U-shaped curve, we call it here, the bar chart. This is the number of high net worths in the world by region and predicted over the next 10 years. Europe, we've amalgamated the whole of Europe, not including Russia and the central states of Ukraine, etc. Europe is the majority of all those companies and countries, rather, that have in excess of 30 million euros, which is about $30 million today. So what we're looking at is a huge number of people who can afford to be in a marketplace. 30 doesn't sound a lot, but 30 million means these are people who will charter. These are people who will actually keep our market moving. The USA, in the middle there, 45,000 ultra-high net worth individuals, wealthy individuals in the USA, who today are driving the biggest activity in the brokerage and the new build sector. The USA is where everyone in Europe is focused from a sales perspective. You talk to any of the major shipyards, 50% of their order book is coming out of the USA. So this is an interesting situation. They all looked east to Asia for the last 5, 6 years to see what was there. They've now turned around and looked the other way because Asia's not ready. They're looking at America. America will be the best marketplace for clients probably for the next 5 years. Down at the bottom here is a tiny little sort of bar, which is Russia. And the interesting thing with Russia, it is a shrinking violet. Everyone was so excited about Russia for the last 10 years. It has now shrunk away for obvious reasons. Ukraine, Putin's politics, and the ruble, the oil crisis. All these things are making Russians move slowly back into their caves, wondering where they're going to come back into the marketplace. There have been several new build contracts in Europe where Russians have defaulted on payments, and these are now yachts for sale or distressed assets. It's a fairly risky market to be ever too focused on Russia. Michael, next slide, please. Another positive little output here. When we look at the refit forecast, which Francois is going to talk about in a second, more from a shipyard perspective, we've done a little sort of presentation here, which is essentially looking at 4 different segments to show the number of yachts who are going to enter a refit cycle in the next 4 years. So 2015, this year, there's essentially, can't do the maths on the top of my head, it's about 600 yachts are entering a refit cycle this year that have been built in the last 4 years. These are yachts within the 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 70, 70 plus.
And would you say they're entering a refit cycle because of class? Or
Yeah, their cycle of 5-year cycle survey,
Okay,
which essentially is a driver of refit activity.
right.
So ultimately, you're seeing in the next sort of 4 years a fairly significant upturn in the refit potential. So if you're in that sector, there's absolutely no reason to worry because this is all going to happen. And the capacity for refit has not grown dramatically. There are yards who've expanded, but not enough to cope with the number of projects that enter that cycle pretty soon. The important thing is that a lot of the yards in Europe and potentially in Palm Beach here are focused on the bigger end of the market, 50, 60, 70 plus. They've upscaled, they've invested for the very large projects. Now, that means there's a very big opportunity below 50 meters. If you're in that sector and you're focused or you're a specialist in that sector, that's a good place to be. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to get better market segmentation amongst supply chain and amongst the service companies to make sure you know that you're an expert in a particular area. What we've seen in the last 5 years is people migrating and following the herd, thinking, I want to get into big boats. I want to be the best supplier of 100-meter plus boats. The 100-meter plus market is going to shrink back in the next 10 years. We spoke to Peter Lurson last week on an interview for the magazine. He is concerned about the future of the very large yacht market. It's going to regress to a certain number because when they all come out, we don't know what's going to happen to those assets when people start using them. It's going to be an interesting time in the very, very large yacht market. And I think there's so much more I could talk about, but we're such a short window of opportunity for me and my 4 fellow panelists, that ultimately I could talk to you for hours about the yacht market, but you'd be bored stiff listening to me. The most important thing is that rethink how you do your business. I did that a long time ago and realized that actually, if you reinvent and rework where your focus is, business can grow quite dramatically. What that leads me to is a little question, I think, Michael. Is that now? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Next
my question was really, what would a US superyacht new build sector do for your particular interest? If it was healthy. We used to have a fantastically healthy US new build sector. The Trinities, the Bergers, the Browards, they were the leaders of our market 15, 20 years ago. We've lost our way a little bit in the US. It's a shame because you've got a fantastic marketplace. And I really believe that the US market should reorganize itself to become specialists in very specific, the Cadillacs and the Cherokee Jeeps of the US ownership cycle. That's another subject we can talk about for hours. All right. Michael,
Okay.
anything else you need to say?
No, come back.
I've finished, thank you.
Come on back. So with that being kind of the heavy lifting of data and this poll going on right now with the people in the room and some, 30 few people actually participating, what would a healthy U.S. supermarket sector mean to you? Definitely much more business. A lot of people are saying some business. Hardly anyone saying yards don't matter to us. Or this sector doesn't mean anything to us. So an interesting point to, and thank you, Martin. Great bit of information. And we'll come back, and if you want the whole thing on the whole report, we'll share with you shortly where you can get that. Next slide, and next speaker, next participant is Bob Saxon. Again, kind of giving from Martin's perspective of where we are in the new build sector. Now let's take a look at what's going on in sales and from your FYBA and historical perspective, Bob, too. Also, if you don't mind, Bob, just, because most of the people know, but just give us a quick glimpse of back 30 years and coming forward, what you've done and what you see in the marketplace now.
Okay, yeah, 30 years ago, I know Graham can relate to this. I was working for the very first yacht management group, a company called Whittemore & Williams, and we had 50 yachts under management and only 4 on staff. So times really have changed, and with all the regulatory and safety and everything else come into play, and the clients expect more of you. Now you have to have 20, 30 people on board to be able to handle that many boats. I go back to that company 32, 33 years ago when it was a completely different marketplace. You had a lot of yachtsmen, true yachtsmen in the business, and we were managing at that time most of the owners of sailing yachts that were New York Yacht Club members. And from there, I started a company called the Sachs Group, which really began to emerge into the modern day model that we know as yacht management today. And then onward to Bob Saxon Associates for 15 years. My company was sold to Camper Nicholson's. I worked for Camper Nicholson's for 8 years. And then to Florida Yacht Brokers Association as executive director, and now onward to International Yacht Collection. So I have a varying perspective, and I have a unique perspective that I can take a look at the industry, having been involved in all market segments and sectors. So if I want to take my own poll, if you don't mind, Mike. How many in here in the room, you can raise your hands, in one way or another are affected by yacht sales? How many, actually I probably should ask how many or not, but how many, okay? Okay, it looks like everybody, although I can't see through that light. And so the things I have to say to you will affect you. If we don't have yacht sales, a lot of us are out of business, okay? And if we don't have new builds, many more of us are out of business as well. And Martin was reflecting on how good a market the United States is right now. But we've been through, and I don't want to throw any hackneyed phrases out there, but we've been through very turbulent times over the past 7, 8 years. 7 or 8 years ago, I can dare say that regardless of how little talent you had, you were making money in the yacht business. And over the last 7 or 8 years of the recession, it has sort of filtered out and sussed out the yacht market, and we're left with what we have today. These are turbulent times. And we've been like sort of like a punch-drunk fighter on the ropes for the last 7 years. And for my staff, for example, and the people that I've worked with over the past 7 or 8 years, what's really happened is it's kind of toughened us up. So now that the grass will get greener, we think, here soon, and we're all going to be ready to go to battle to win our market share. The U.S. base as a base of wealth, undeniable. 10,000 new ultra-high net worth individuals entered the market last year, according to the Superyacht Intelligence Report, and most of them, 70% of them in any way, were U.S. But what of it? So we've got the money, but what we have right now is we're faced with a conundrum. Because while all Lux indices, buying indices are positive, yachting is not. Boating is not. And I actually polled the Florida Yacht Brokers Association Board of Directors for input coming here today with wearing the FIBA hat as well as the IYC hat. And there is a glimmer here because new, smaller boat sales are on the rise. And from what I understood from the board, A number of units were sold out of the Miami show on that basis. But the brokerage market's a different story altogether. Wealthy folks, affluent folks are buying jewelry, they're buying upscale real estate, they're buying beautiful cars, they're even buying jet aircraft. And according to Elite Traveler, Bombardier delivered 195 units, which is an incredible capacity, production capacity. Now, a jet is not a yacht, let's face it. But to deliver to the marketplace 195 $10 to $20 million units is pretty incredible. But what's the difference? Why aren't they buying yachts? This is my opinion. Because you can take a jet, and you could park it on a runway off to the side, or you could put it in a hangar, or an FBO. But a yacht, go down to Fort Lauderdale, look out there, you can't hide them. And this all becomes a case of, in my opinion, a little bit of conspicuous consumption. So the 2 points that I want to make about this are, number one, what is the attitude toward wealth in the United States? And we have allowed our political system to start to make being wealthy a negative attribute. And that is that our government, and I don't want to get too political here, as you can understand, I am a Republican, but our government, and I don't think anybody can deny this, has allowed the thought to prevail that the wealthy and the affluent are to blame for all of our economic ills. Okay. And what happens then is that folks are a little more shy about wanting to do high-profile things, such as chartering a yacht, or such as building a yacht, or as buying a yacht. And so that's the problem that we have. And I talked to one of the builders, one of the major builders in the world. He was at our sales meeting, and I asked him how many orders did he have on the books. And they have 16 orders either in the pipeline or on paper. And I asked him, well, that's interesting, how many of those are Americans? And he said 6. And I said, how many of those Americans dealt with American brokerage firms or American agents? Can you guess? It was 0. And while Americans are spending money on yachts, they're not spending money on yachts in the United States. Because as I said, the attitude toward wealth and the view of being wealthy. It was one time in the United States, you were revered, you were admired because you were wealthy. It was the Horatio Alger approach to wealth, rags to riches. And 65 to 70% of our affluent folks are all self-made. Some inherited, but most are self-made. And that's been forgotten, and now, well, people used to admire that, and now they look down upon that. And what is our selling mode is the last point that I want to make. Hank DeVries did an interview in a publication here recently that I read where he said, we're still debating amongst ourselves at FedShip on how to communicate to the market. And what I believe he was saying there is that, as Martin alluded, that what we were saying 7 or 8 years ago and how we were selling 7 or 8 years ago are obsolete. They're done. And Willie Loman, in Death of a Salesman, lost his marketplace because he didn't keep up with market trends and changes, and the same thing is happening. And if our brokers and our salesmen and our new build salesmen are not out there talking completely differently and handling the objections that are new objections to us and understanding that they're now selling to the heirs, they're no longer necessarily selling to the old money, but they're selling to the heirs of the money, and they're all digitalized. I have owners that if they walked in here right now, you'd think they were just some punk kid walking in here. The fact is that what we say and how we act and what we say in our advertising and our marketing, it has to be different than what we're doing right now. And those of you that are retail, if you're approaching your marketing on the same basis as you did 7 or 8 years ago, you're probably losing market share. So that's pretty much what I have to say, Mike, about all that kind of stuff, right?
All right. So with that, who says that's all I have to say about that? Forrest Gump. With that Forrest Gump wisdom, we have a little bit of a video to show you that along those lines that Bob's saying is intentionally provocative. So, and Caitlin, I don't know if I need your help with it, but watch for just a moment, please. And no sound. We'll try again.
You can voice over, Mike.
I can tell you what you're saying.
Yeah, I can almost say it now. I've watched it enough times.
Because we're crazy, driven, hard-working believers, that's why. Those other countries think we're
Can you
nuts.
back it up, Caitlin? Thank you.
Why do we work so hard? For what? For this? For stuff? Other countries, they work, they stroll home, they stop by the cafe, they take August off. Off. Why aren't you like that? Why aren't we like that? Because we're crazy, driven, hard-working believers, that's why. Those other countries think we're nuts. Whatever. Were the Wright brothers insane? Bill Gates, Les Paul, Ali. Were we nuts when we pointed to the moon? That's right. We went up there, and you know what we got? Bored. So we left. Got a car up there, left the keys in it. Do you know why? Because we're the only ones going back up there, that's why. But I digress. It's pretty simple. You work hard, you create your own luck, and you gotta believe anything is possible. As for all the stuff, that's the upside of only taking 2 weeks off in August. N'est-ce pas?
So Cadillac ran that ad during the Olympics, and someone said they saw it during the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Was it during the Super Bowl? And it's been pulled. I don't know why it could possibly, be considered controversial, but Ford came back with its own response, and I should have included it, but I'm not. And please take me right. I'm not saying anything that's intended to be racist in any way, but the ad has a lady who has a lady of color with a huge afro come on, and she's standing in front of a row of cow poo, otherwise known as compost, and they counter it with exactly the same cadence and style, but she's going to be the other end of the spectrum that is a more eco-friendly, instead of, if you will, if that guy, that famous actor represents the right, the Ford commercial represents the left. So with that, and Bob's point, is the controversial Cadillac commercial evidence that it's okay to be affluent in America or not? And some people are saying it's okay to be rich, but don't flaunt it, a bunch of people, and it's cool to be rich and show it. It does have, whether we like it or not, it does have a huge psychological factor in what we all do. Ron's going to talk in a minute about Americans building boats in America. But by and large, the information that Martin gave us is showing, and the fact that those American owners building boats in Europe aren't even talking to American brokers, there's an issue. And there's an issue I think we have to confront as an industry and say, what's up with that, and when Bob was just saying, we need to adjust our sales and how we're approaching that market, that is the objection that you have to deal with right now in this market as we hope to see it grow.
Michael, might I?
Yes.
Yeah, the images in that commercial, I asked Michael to play that commercial, as a matter of fact. The images in that commercial are very important. You have, according to the statistics in the Superyacht Intelligence Report, someone in their 50s, a male, dominating the HNW. But it also, he mentions at the end, we take 2 weeks off, okay? And so we have to sell differently to Americans because it's difficult. I know that and I know other Americans too, find it very difficult to go on vacation, to take time off, to be, and Martin says in the editorial of the report, we need to have fun and we need to convey that fun to our clients, because if our client's going to have fun, there's not going to get into yachting at all. So that while it did poke a little bit of fun when he says n'est pas at the end, which means it is so, isn't it, or something like that.
It is so.
It is so. Then we are poking fun at the French. Yes, they stop at the cafe on the way home and they have a demi-tasse, and they take a month off here and there when they want to go on vacation. Well, if the air traffic controllers want to just go on vacation, they stop everything for a month, or the railroads and all that. But it points out the difference about what you should be saying to Americans as opposed to what you might be saying to somebody around the rest of the world. And that's the point.
So, Bob, you just ruined the next poll.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I just want to check.
Because
Going back
we're
now.
going to...
Rewind.
Never mind.
Bob, did you vote for D?
Ain't cool to be rich. So what's your take, Bob? In the controversial Cadillac, is it evidence that it's okay to be American? What's your answer?
Well, the focus of our advertising at IYC right now is, if you look at it, it says, look, you've worked hard. And that's what drew my attention to this ad. I thought Cadillac stole our idea. You've worked hard. You're a success. Why don't you get out there and enjoy it now, okay? And that's the whole point. But I would be in number 2.
Okay,
Michael, can
so,
I just say one thing?
yeah.
Can I just challenge you, Bob, on something that's always bugged me? The brokerage community seems to convey a message that everything you buy is discounting daily.
Yes.
Can that change? Because to me, it's destroying the perception of the asset value.
It drives me crazy. I mean, the ads that, I just delete, as most of you do all day long. But these things about owner must sell, owner desperate, 2-boat owner must get rid of 1 boat, bring all offers, must sell before the show. Yeah, it does drive the market down. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay, so historically, I just want to tell you, first of all, we as Americans, and it's probably mostly Americans, even though Martin came over, and I think there's a German and here's the thing, Americans actually are from everywhere in the world, but we're also known as being the worst in geography. You guys, because Bob cheated, did pretty well. Most of you would have put the pin on Yugoslavia, even though it doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, that was just a fun slide to throw in there. Next, Francois Venuel. Francois and I don't know when we actually met, but we've been working together a bunch on some refits over the last few years in his role at Rybovich. Francois's got an incredible background with Fedship, naval architecture, being a project manager. Francois, tell us a little bit about your background a little more, and then what's your perspective and what you see at Rybovich and what you see in the refit world, especially here in the U.S. and the initiatives Rybovich have undertaken?
Well, my background, obviously, I'm Dutch, so I've moved to the country here in 2006, and I got to say, this is one of the last standing immigrant countries, and as soon as you have a cell phone and an address, you're one of you guys. And had I gone to Italy, they would have put a Dutch flag on my tombstone to make sure that nobody mistook me for being not Italian.
Yeah.
Anyway, I grew up with my dad building sailboats and in a river in Holland and racing sailboats. Wanted to make a profession out of that. Went to Delft University, did a master's degree in naval architecture where yachts were non-existent because they basically had a mentality anything under 300 feet, which in those days no other yacht was not considered a proper ship. So I had to go 6.5 years through commercial shipping and offshore and everything else and then motivate myself sailing on the weekends to thinking I'm ending up in yachting somewhere, one down the road. Did that, then found my way, got asked to come and work for Fedship as a naval architect, moved to Van Lent, did all that, De Vries, did a project there, went to Fedship America here. With one of my missions from a new build perspective, and to Martin's point, half the clientele of Fedship in the 90s and in the 2000s that I was there was American. So I was 4 times a month, I was in the US, I was on the phone with US brokers, to be unnamed, till 9, 10 p.m., selling mostly to American clients. And coming here, one of my personal missions was to find a reliable service yard that we could recommend to our US client base, as well as doing our own service work and warranty work. And that was hard to find in the US because what we found was we'd send a boat somewhere, we flew a few people in, we told them what we wanted to do, and then with warranty, I'm just digressing a little bit to the new build, but typically you have a pipeline of boats.
Right.
And if you have a fault, a generic fault in one, it takes a few boats before you fix the whole pipeline.
Yeah.
Send the boat next year, and all of a sudden it became a total disaster. And what happened? Where were the people that we talked to last year or 6 months ago? And you fly out, and all of them had left because they went to work for somebody else for $2 an hour more. And that's really, that was really the issue. How do you get a learning organization and a team of people when you play sports? You want to be doing the same thing with the same people. Again, you don't put a new team on the field every single week. And I ended up running into Wayne Jr. and the team and ended up eventually now 3.5 years with Rybovich. And it's an interesting, just like Bob has a very interesting perspective of them from his angle of the industry, it's interesting to see the service side. And I feel much better after Martin's data that the service industry obviously will be around because the fleet's growing. They are assets. Rich people are sometimes difficult to get money out of, but they also understand asset management and letting a value completely diminish is not good business. And so it will take energy, time, and money to maintain those vessels, and as there's more and more. On top of that, the asset value, average asset value is increasing on the bigger end of the boats, but I fully agree with Martin on his assessment that let's not forget the 30 to 45 meter range.
Right.
There's a huge amount of boats. I'm not sure you didn't just really say why you're making that bracket, but for us, we do the same thing with our data because we see two generically different demographic and migratory patterns. Anything over 40 to 45 meter has the potential to become a global cruiser and will transit the Atlantic and do the summer in the Med, do a winter in the Caribbean, or go to the Pacific on a yacht base. And boats under 100 foot typically stay within a regional area of a couple of 100 miles and will not really move out of that, and therefore all the service and maintenance and repair work will happen within that area. So for us, being based here in South Florida, we look at South Florida, and we look at, for the larger yachts, we look at the global patterns.
Can you tell what, you know, just looking at the question here that's posed. So, and I think, John, are we running short on time? How are we doing? Running short on time? Okay, we'll hurry. So, the smaller market, the bigger market, you do both
Yes.
there. What is the outlook? How has it been?
To Martin's point, we discuss the market segmentation all the time. I think, true to his point, and we are very cautious of the top end of the market because from a service perspective, a couple of new big 100+ meters is not really a service market. And they move all over the place. They can go to facilities that have already completely amortized their costs. And I've been offered the use of dry docks of 300 meters in Europe for €1 as long as I use a local subcontractor. So the facility cost to install one of those new is you know, 80, 100 million if you're going that size. And then you have to compete with somebody that gives it away for free.
Right.
I think there is a healthy balance in the size, and it comes down to also what more and more important as we see now is the use of the boat is the schedule and timing. Boats come in, boats go out after the owner's use, before a charter, or they have to cross before bad weather. So time and speed of reaction is important, and that ties into your facility as well, and it goes back to everybody here. If you're in the service industry, and that's something that I've really got to experience moving from a new build sector to the service industry, the pace is completely different. The sense of urgency is completely different. I deal with all the new build yards in Europe for engineering and parts and pieces and feedback, and I have to chase them every 12 hours to let me know the answer because the client's leaving.
Right.
And they really have a hard time understanding that urgency. So yeah, from that perspective, I think it's a good place to be.
All right. So moving on, because we kind of got to go quickly now. Ron is the marketing director at Westport Yachts. Ron, both in new construction, if you can give us a glimpse of what's happening with the only U.S. shipyard that really has seen positive growth over a sustained period of time. Can you give us a picture of those numbers, and then what kind of market are you selling to? And then in the resale market, if you have any comments.
Sure. Well, we currently, with the 3 shipyards that we have out in Washington, there's 3 112s under construction at the moment, 2 of which are spoken for, 2 130s and 2 164s that are currently being done. We have the new 125 that delivers summer of next year. Okay. The first 2 of those are spoken for. And then we do have on the drawing board for something in between and something a little bit larger.
Okay.
So that's where we're at the moment. And I know we'd mentioned earlier about the used side of it. We currently, approximately 50% of the Westports that are reselling is what we're doing.
So you sell your own boats in the secondary resale market?
Correct.
Okay. How many of those clients are American in the new build portion?
Pretty much 98% at this point.
Okay. So American shipyard, Pacific Northwest, selling to Americans. And then in the resale market, what did the percentages remain the same or change?
No, I would say in the resale side of it, 30% outside the U.S.
Okay. Or can you, and again, time's short, but what is the key to Westport's success?
We've stuck to our business model and listen to the clients.
Okay.
That's
But but Martin and Bob were both posing the fact that the market's changed so much. So you've stick to a model, but had to adapt, or just stuck to a model?
Yeah, we make tweaks here and as we move forward with each boat, listen to what worked for the previous client, incorporate it into the next one.
Okay.
So it's been a slow development.
I think, can I just add something to
Yeah,
Ron's comments?
please.
I think Westport's success is not, although you listen to the customer, you've allowed your manufacturing process to get more and more efficient,
Exactly.
to make more profit,
Yeah.
rather than to follow the dream of custom that wastes time and money for every
That
shipyard.
initial investment in the tooling and all that,
Yeah.
that's where we can.
Yeah,
They're a
that
manufacturing
is a
business
huge,
rather
right,
than a custom builder.
right,
which
very
is
good,
what
very
I think
good.
all the US builders were 20, 30 years ago.
Right. Okay, again, time short, and sorry, Graham, but please, your perspective, first of all, a little bit of your background, and your perspective kind of on the entire umbrella of having yachts with, I imagine, owners not in the U.S., in the U.S., and boats operating globally.
All right, thank you, Michael. Coming from the great seafaring nation of Zimbabwe, it was kind of natural that I'd go back to working on yachts.
Does anyone know where Zimbabwe is?
Yeah, let's get that map back.
I was the chief engineer for 10 years on board yachts. Actually worked on a boat that was managed by BSA and by Fraser Yachts after that, which was what led to me getting into the yacht management department. Worked on Dutch boats and Italian boats and a couple of US built boats. So I've got to cover a bit of a spectrum of the different types of boats. And I'll tell you, from my experience working as a chief engineer for 10 years, was without doubt the best job that I've ever had. It kind of troubles me that we hear 95% of yacht owners get out of yachting because of crew problems. I can't understand it really, quite frankly, why the crew are becoming such a problem to the owners. I think that's another subject altogether, though.
It's valid. It's a valid point. Unfortunately, we don't have time. but please.
When I started Fairport, the idea was that I would become just a boutique company that focused just on one sector, and that was the service sector. We don't do sales, we don't do charter, we just focus on the operations of the boat. 95% of my clients are American clients. Very few of them cruise the US, and I think that's a combination of conspicuous consumption. I think the fact that they've mostly grown up in the US and they've seen the US, and they want to go somewhere different. So I know that my clients they don't have the yachts here to cruise. I really feel that the focus should be on what our businesses actually do. I know my business is a service business. I know that we focus on the service side, and I have no doubt in my mind that the US provides the best service for the yachts out there. Whether it's refits, whether it's just regular maintenance of the yachts, or whether it's just stopping in Florida, being one of the main stops, to replenish the yacht. If you look at the way in which we've managed to lay ourselves out, we can get any service provided to a yacht within probably an hour of needing them. I don't think that can be done anywhere else in the world. I think that when you look at basic logistics like refueling a 60-meter yacht in the south of France, it's a big deal. For us to get 3 or 4 fuel bowsers to Bahia is just one phone call. We don't even give it much thought at all. So these are advantages that we have in the US that the other countries I don't think will ever catch up. We have an infrastructure, we have a highway system and a rail system and an airport system, second to none, and that's enabling us to provide service to the yachts they're not going to get anywhere else.
So as we kind of, if we had more time, and I invite you guys to talk to these guys and take the opportunity to network a bit more, but if we had more time, I really wanted to sort of take a look at a day in the life of what it is managing yachts, what it is building boats and stuff like that. Time is going to prevent that, but our last poll question is, so since the horrible times of 2007, 2008, how has business been over the last 3 years for you out there in the audience? And is it growing? Has it stayed the same, contracting all over the place? I think there's, the basic fundamentals of business are to do things and to have business functionality that works, and a lot of these businesses have that. How they specifically do it, we can't really go into now, and as the poll there shows, we see that businesses are growing. There's a lot of light in my face, but I do see a hand back there, and John or Kitty, can we do just a couple of questions? Or?
It's just a quick comment.
Go ahead.
On the last poll question, I think there's one thing we were missing. The first one said, cool to be rich and show it, but I think we should also add if you share it, because there are a lot of philanthropic yacht owners and a lot of examples of that.
Can I just comment on that? Philanthropic contributions in the United States are up 4,000% in the last 5 years because it's cool to be
It is
charitable.
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Do you work for a nonprofit?
I'm here representing Yacht Aid Global, yes.
Okay, cool.
And I'm happy to say I've just recently informed Graham we have one of his boats that we met with the owner yesterday. He's doing an around-the-world trip and wants to educate his kids. And, you know, he felt a little guilty about his asset, and he wants to give back. So
Yeah, that's a great point, and that
Great to
award
hear.
that was given out at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show was really cool. So, yeah, no, great. Any other questions, because we kind of have to wrap up. I'm sorry we had to go fast. Yes, Diane.
Bob, I have a quick question, a follow-up for what you were saying about conspicuous consumption. And let me preface it by saying I agree that I think there is a problem perceptually among a lot of people who have wealth. But here's what I come down to. You know, the 99%, so to speak, look at the wealthy as if they're the cause of all the ills. Yet, within the same breath, they will celebrate the fact that celebrities are throwing these monstrous parties, or maybe even going out on a yacht and chartering it, or creating a yacht video, or a video to, you know, on a yacht to accompany their, you know, their latest single. So, where does that dichotomy come from? Why are we celebrating the celebrities yet vilifying anybody else? Is it simply because they're celebrities? You know, what's your opinion on it?
It's a tough one. I can say that there was a very popular news story that hit the German, what do you call the yellow sheets, the media, but about a gentleman, I think it was Lursen, he was building a yacht at, okay, and the headlines read, the tabloid headlines read, he lays 500 people off, and now he's building
This is Ocean Co.
Yeah, Ocean Co.
Yeah, Vibrant Curiosity.
Yeah. Now, there is that segment, of course, that does enjoy the celebrity, but I think across the board, the vast majority of my owners, and I think those, they want privacy. They want discretion. They want to go to the Bahamas. They don't necessarily want to sit at Atlantis. They want to go find a cove someplace, a lagoon, and be alone and never see another human being as far as it's concerned. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it's a great question, Diane, but you know, if you've got to make a business decision that means people losing jobs, and then you have such an ostentatious thing of wealth, you know, for some reason having the mansion's okay, but having the yacht, it does have a stigma to it, and it is part of
Listen,
what
Michael, I don't think it's necessarily a stigma. I think the problem is that it's the way we present and sell the asset. I'm not
Good
criticizing
point.
broker. I think the way we sell it,
Yeah.
it is a headache to own, over-regulated. There are too many problems associated. Buying a house is straightforward. It's you go to an agent, you find the property, you buy it, and there aren't that life cycle issues that owners get so frustrated with. We have to sharpen up our service proposition, our cost of ownership, and just improve the sales process.
Right.
Give people an experience that they'll be positive about.
Yeah.
Every owner I interview will say, it's a bloody headache to own a boat.
Right.
But for God knows, I do it.
Right. And thank God they do, but it
But there's
is
so many more that could.
yeah, it is a fact.
Yeah,
And
I just wanted, Mike, just to add in that, I don't know if anybody saw the article towards the end of last year in the New York Times of the gentleman that built Denathlon. And
Yes.
I thought that article was fantastic. You know, the amount of people that he employed, how he was proud to spend $35 million on an asset and put that right into tradesman's pocket. I thought that was a really well-written article. I'd like to see more of that sort of article come out.
Okay, so with that, I have to close quickly because I think that Kane thing is going to come out and pull us off stage here in a second. So thank you, and
Can I just say also, in
Yes.
my yachting experience, tides fall as well as rise.
Yes, thank you very much.